On débute.
I call the meeting to order. I would like to start with the election of the vice chair, the conservative vice chair, given that we have a vacancy there. For that part, I'll be giving the floor to our clerk, who will conduct the elections of the vice chair.
6.2. The first vice chair must be a member of the official opposition. I am now prepared to receive motions for the first vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Damian Kirk. Thank you.
It has been moved by Dave Epp that Damian Kirk be elected as first vice chair of the committee. Are there any further motions? So it has been moved by Dave Epp that Damian Kirk be elected as first vice chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion?
Can I second that motion? It's Craig McLean. Can I second that motion, please?
It was seconded already, but I guess
you could, sorry about that.
We know your intent now, so it's noted. Yeah. Okay, so that's taken care of.
Yeah. So I declare the motion carried, and
wonderful.
Damian Kirk duly elected first vice chair of the committee.
Congratulations, Mr. Kirk, and we look forward to working with you on steering committee, which meets not too often, but from time to time. Okay, so we are completing our hearings for the clean tech study today in the first hour. And I would just like to mention that in accordance with our routine motion, all the witnesses have completed their technical tests and they have passed. So we're set to go, and we have three witnesses today. We have Yvette Vera Perez from the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. From Fog Dog Energy Solutions, we have Swapan Kakumanu, and from the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority, we have Mr. Ian Robertson, and each witness has 3 minutes to give their opening remarks, and we'll start with Ms. Vera Perez.
Good afternoon. My name is Yvette Vera Perez. I'm the President and CEO of the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Association, CHFCA. With over 160 members at all stages of the hydrogen supply chain, our members export clean technologies to over 42 countries, which account for 65% of the world population. According to a recent report by EY, the annual Canadian hydrogen market could reach $100 billion and create 350,000 jobs by 2050. Recognizing this potential and the fact that we cannot get to net zero without hydrogen, CHFCA members recently visited Ottawa, where we made a number of recommendations which I bring to you today. Canada must keep up with the ambition and activity in jurisdictions across the globe. Countries like Germany, China, and the US have made massive strides in scaling up the industry. The Inflation Reduction Act in the US is one example. Its simplicity and amount offered for hydrogen outpaces Canada. We must operate in a global context when developing funding and policies so that we don't see our projects and companies migrate to other jurisdictions. The Canadian 2020 Hydrogen Strategy committed to develop 30 hubs by 2030. Since then, there has been much discussion about the Canadian hydrogen sector, but not significant action at the federal level. Canada's commitments for the sector continue to increase, including the agreement to export clean hydrogen by 2025, but we're far behind in meeting this target. Deployment of the hydrogen strategy must be appropriately resourced to accelerate its implementation. Programs like the Strategic Innovation Fund and Clean Fuels Fund are great signals of the ambition the government has for Canadian clean tech companies and for the industry. But the resource-intensive application process and the long wait times are a deterrent for project proponents. We must commit to a reasonable turnaround time for CIF, CFF, CIB, or any other future funding. Finally, federal strategies and policies should build on and enable each other, but they too often work at cross purposes. This is costly, inefficient, and ineffective. We recommend that all proposed federal strategies and policies undergo an assessment of how they support the government's vision. For example, Canada has declared a goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Hydrogen has a key role to play in this respect. We must put forth the right set of enabling policies that jointly work to attain these goals. In closing, Canada has always been at the forefront of the global hydrogen industry, but with the rapid development of the sector and our lack of action at home, Canada is falling behind. We must invest smartly, heavily, and rapidly to reclaim our leadership position in the hydrogen sector. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
Merci, Madame Vera.
Thank you, Ms. Vera Perez. Now we'll give the floor to Mr. Kakumanu. 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Swapan Kakumanu. I'm the co-founder and director of FogDog Energy Solutions, Inc. FogDog is a privately owned Canadian company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta. FogDog's mission is to eliminate landfills. We do that by creating groundbreaking innovations where FogDog systems use materials that would have otherwise been sent to landfills and use those materials to provide sustainable green energy and sustainable raw materials, along with reducing greenhouse gases. FogDog is currently working on a few joint venture partnerships and projects in Canada, as well as internationally. To put this into context, Canada currently produces around 32 million tons of landfill waste per year. FogDog's mission is to remove these 32 million tons from these landfills and in turn help to reduce the climate change temperature to up to 3 degrees in Canada. FogDog can process many forms of waste such as municipal, plastic, tires, oil waste, agricultural waste, etc., and in turn create high quality products such as graphite, graphene, hydrogen, and other green fuels. Graphite, for example, is in high demand in the electric vehicle industry, and it's used to manufacture batteries to run these electric vehicles. Currently, China is the largest exporter of graphite in the world. So now let me explain a little bit about landfills. Landfills are a huge problem and has a direct impact on climate change temperature. To list a few, less than 10% of plastics are recycled and the rest end in landfills. Landfills are reaching capacity and new ones need to be built. Contributes to approximately up to 30% of Canada's methane emissions as powerful greenhouse gases. Methane, as everybody knows, is 21 times more potent than CO2. Full cycle cost of an average landfill is over $30 million and also has a long-term environmental liability and impact. Landfills are a huge fire hazard, and we have seen recently several of these going up in flames and in turn emitting harmful gases as the landfills burn. Currently, landfills do not provide any revenue or energy, but is a huge cost both financially and environmentally. Municipal waste management is expensive. Municipal governments in Canada collectively are spending around $4 billion per year, $4 billion per year to waste collection, transportation, and disposal into and to maintain these landfills. Finally, every landfill leaks. Leachate, a toxic brew of waste chemicals, leak into the ground system. So let me talk a little bit about the FogDog and the municipalities.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur Kakum.
I'm sorry, sir. Your 3 minutes are up. Could you please quickly summarize? There will be a question and answer session later.
Sure, will do. So around 2017, China stopped taking all the plastic and waste process that was resulting in most of the countries, including Canada, now facing huge problems to maintain waste. FogDog process does not need upfront segregation or separation of waste and takes this waste as it comes.
Okay, thank you.
FogDog
thank you.
process.
Thanks very much. We'll have to stop there. We'll go to Mr. Robertson, please, for 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as you continue your important work on clean technologies in Canada. My name is Ian Robertson. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority. And to start, I wish to acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territories we operate in the Songhees Nation, the Esquimalt Nation, whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. Both nations form part of our 8-member agencies. For those who are not aware, the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority is a community-based, not-for-profit organization that is committed to the stewardship and sustainable growth of Victoria's dynamic working harbour. Our organization is governed by 13-member board of directors, represented by 4 independent members and 8-member agencies. The Victoria Cruise Terminal at the Breakwater District is Canada's busiest port of call. Victoria is an essential Canadian cruise port of call for vessels operating in the coastal waters of Southeast Alaska and British Columbia. In 2022, Victoria will have welcomed 330 ship calls, carrying 725,000 passengers. In 2018, greenhouse gas emissions from the Victoria Cruise Terminal were equivalent to just over 3,200 cars on the road per year. Since 2010, criteria air contaminants have decreased by 41%. Sulfur dioxide has been reduced by 95%. Particulate matter has been reduced by 79%. Cruise passenger counts have increased 45%, while GHG emissions have only increased 19% due to increasingly stringent emission standards. Cruise emissions account for 96% of all emissions at the Victoria Cruise Terminal. In January 2019, we contacted Synergy Enterprises to develop a full-scale emissions inventory for the terminal to help identify where we could make improvements to emissions under our control and jurisdiction. After extensive study of various shore power technologies, frequency conversion technology installed with a shore power connection has been recommended to optimize for variability in types of cruise and non-cruise vessels, further adding to the long-term diversification of the deepwater port. The study found that by implementing a shoreside power system at 2 berths, the estimated annual reduction of carbon emissions is between 6,400 and 7,300 tons of CO2. This equates to a total savings of just over 131,000 tons of CO2 through 2040 over a no-action scenario. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide would also similarly reduce as well. These reductions would be in addition to gains made by the cruise industry to meet the global challenge of reducing the rate of carbon emissions across the fleet by 40% by 2030. As other ports in North America and elsewhere have seen, shore power technology drastically reduces emissions where vessels are in port, as well as reduces emissions from buildings and fleet vehicles, along with other vessels being able to plug in to the shore power infrastructure. This is an important move that is being adopted by the cruise lines themselves. By 2030, 85% of all vessels calling to the Victoria Cruise Terminal will be shore power capable.
Thank you. We'll have to stop there, but there'll be opportunities to share information in the Q&A period. On débute
We will start the first round with Mr. Deltel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, good Friday afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to our guests by video conference. My first question goes to Ms. Yvette Vera Perez concerning hydrogen.
I'm very pleased to see you in our committee. Quand on parle d'hydrogène,
when we talk about hydrogen, we cannot forget electricity and the very high energy needs that are required to use hydrogen. Could you tell us more about the challenges that Canada is facing considering electricity needs when we talk about hydrogen?
Thank you for the question. It is a good question. As a rule of thumb, I've read before that Canada's grid at a national level, right, would have to increase, would have to double or triple its capacity. And this is not only for hydrogen in general, right, for electrification. Now, hydrogen actually provides an avenue to enhance the grid, if you will, in the sense that hydrogen can be produced when the peak needs of electricity consumption are not there. So in those times when it's when you need less hydrogen, you can store it. Hydrogen is one of the few medium that you can store at the terawatt level for a long period of time. Fortunately, in Canada, we have a blessed geography that allows us to store hydrogen in depleted natural gas caverns and salt caverns, right? Not only in Ontario, in different provinces as well. So you can, for example, extend the life and the size of projects there in the solar and wind space, but allowing them to produce hydrogen when the grid is not in a position to absorb all that electricity, and then use it when needed. At the same time, transmission lines can be a bottleneck, if you will, when it comes to bringing in more renewable energy on board, nuclear and wind and solar. So hydrogen provides that avenue as well. And then depending on the different provinces in Canada, we need to be to understand how and when during the in the 24-hour period it is more optimal to produce hydrogen.
If we look at the Quebec situation, as you know, we have a great expertise and a great asset when we talk about hydroelectricity since I would say the 50s and the 60s. And there is other project, and maybe you have noticed that Premier of Quebec said a few weeks ago that it was open to have brand new facility on that. Maintenant, est-ce que vous pensez?
Do you think it's a good thing to make sure that we have more dams in Quebec, in areas where it can be done, while recognizing the fact that it takes at least 10 years to construct a new dam? Take, for example, the famous Manikseng Dam. It was launched in 1958 and it was operational in 1968. And it's become the flagship of Quebec. We are all proud of it, but it takes 10 years. So in your opinion, what's the potential for hydroelectricity considering green hydrogen? And secondly, what will be the other energy sources required to produce electricity?
So a very good question. And you're very right. Hydro provides a tremendously stable potential for electricity generation, but it takes a long time. This is why we need to think short, medium, and long term, right? Same as nuclear, for example, and there are lots of conversations in Ontario. So these technologies take time to be deployed at full capacity. So hydro is an option. Again, thinking long term, we're looking to develop a new to scale up an industry right here. So we think about the volumes we want to produce in 2040, 2050. At that time, obviously the hydro power facility will likely be up and running if it is approved, of course. And then in the meantime, you think about what is quicker to develop. Renewable energy projects, for example, solar and wind. Wind also has its lead time to produce to production, but it tends to be a little bit shorter. And then there's solar as well. And then there's always the utilization of the grid. And again, think about what times of the day are the most optimal. There's also the possibility of producing hydrogen through other methods which are not necessarily bringing hydrogen, producing hydrogen by electrolytic means, right? There's also pyrolysis, etc. So looking at the overall mix and thinking, what are the tons that we want to produce, for example, for 2025, 2028, 2030, 2050, and then when will the hydro plant come in, and then what do we need before then, and then work backwards. I know companies like Hydro-Quebec are looking at the whole mix of the options in Quebec. And right now, Quebec is leading the charge, if you will, in the production of hydrogen from electrolysis.
15 secondes. Bien, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And yes, we do believe in hydroelectricity, and we welcome the idea by the Premier of Quebec to relaunch major projects. And when we talk about that, we are not only talking about brand new projects or plants, but other plants that could be added to what we have already. Thank you. Mr. Duguid.
Mr. Chair, thank you to all of our witnesses today. My first questions are to Ms. Vera Perez. You referred to the right set of enabling policies in order to scale up hydrogen production. You only had 3 minutes to amplify on that, so perhaps I'll give you the opportunity to give us a little more detail. And perhaps you could reflect also, while you're doing that, on the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the gaps that you see between Canada and the U.S. and the threats to our competitiveness. These are issues that have come up with this committee repeatedly.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a two-part question, so if you see that I don't answer one portion, please let me know. First, I'm going to say on the policy side, right, there's not one single industrial policy that will achieve all the objectives that, for example, we as a country have, right? Something that I have observed in this role and previous role is that oftentimes we have a general direction, an overarching goal, right? Let's call net zero by 2050 an overarching goal. Let's call the fact that we have developed roadmaps for a number of technologies and industries. In this case, I'm focusing on hydrogen, right? So I'm thinking of that as overarching goals for Canada. Now, when we develop policies, sometimes and funding mechanisms, sometimes we forget about looking at the big picture. And if I give you a couple of examples only, the green building strategy, for example, doesn't account for what we call power to X or blending of hydrogen, right? Meanwhile, Nova Scotia has just made amendments to the Electricity Act and to other acts that allow to expand the Hydrocarbon Act, for example, to include hydrogen and hydrogen blends as part of the Pipeline Act. So we need to think about the big picture. What is the overarching goal for Canada, and how do the policies help meet this goal, and how do the policies help each other? There's also the CCUS policy as well. So do a little bit of a scan, right? Big goals for the country and new policies or new funding mechanisms. How do they enable? Not all of them will participate in this particular strategy or goal, but those who do, how do they help that goal? And again, how do they match each other? It's like a little puzzle, right? And piece by piece, we put the puzzle together. So that's on the policy side. On the IRA side, yes, it's only been a couple of months, right? August 16th, and lots and lots of discussions on IRA. I've been on many webinars and panels and discussions. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, the Canadian Embassy in the US gave a very good presentation for Canadian companies in general, not only hydrogen. So there's a number of components. There's the components for costing projects, which is the ITC, the investment tax credit. So that's important. And what is included in ITC? Only equipment. Also, for example, the projects have costs beyond equipment, right? One example is the cost of electricity, of course, and another cost. So is that going to be included? It's included in the ITC. There's the production tax credit that provides the stimulus of up to, which is not an absolute number, is up to $3 a kilogram of hydrogen produced, and that depends on the pathway and a number of indicators. And then there's all kinds of other potential for improving the economics of your project, depending on training opportunities and domestically built components, etc. So the overall envelope is very attractive. There are also resources for those communities, municipalities, local jurisdictions that need to develop permitting. So there's resources for those groups to staff themselves so that they can help streamline the regulatory and permitting side.
Thank you very much. I think I have time for one more question. So to Mr. Robertson, I had the good fortune of sitting down with Mayor Helps a few years ago and talking about the port and shoreside power production. I wonder if you could amplify on what power you are using. Is that renewable, solar, wind, electricity, and maybe comment on the transferability of the kind of knowledge that you're developing to other ports of call, Halifax, the Great Lakes, because I am sure they're hungry for that kind of information.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. We're very blessed, obviously, out here on the West Coast, that the technology and the source would be hydroelectric, and there is an abundance of that. I think that what we're seeing is that the cruise lines are making great advances in terms of their technology and their ability to plug into ports. I think it's by 2040, 95% of all the cruise ships that will be calling in Victoria will be capable. And I'm just reading a statistic that 85% of all cruise lines will be shore power capable by 2028. So we're seeing good advances on the cruise line side. I think as a country, and certainly as a destination, we're not seeing us catching up. And so there's an opportunity for us to do that.
Madame Posey.
Madame Posey. Let me start by thanking the witnesses. Considering that they sent us their notes in time for us to be able to read them, it's not always the case. So on that, I give you 10 on 10. Madam, I'll come back to you on hydrogen because I do hear your concerns. Indeed, you are not the only one to have talked about the Canada Infrastructure Bank, saying that it's very difficult to have access and to have funds. You also talked about the United States and how things are being developed quickly there in Texas. There's a company that's going to be the major plant, set up Green Hydrogen International. So why Canada is stagnating, other countries are forging ahead. But in my opinion, if hydrogen should be in the hydrogen basket for us to get to net zero, it should be green hydrogen. We can produce hydrogen that is not green hydrogen. But what I also understand is that the issue is not water, but the products that are needed, expensive, need expertise, strategic minerals. So if Canada wants to remain a leader, as you say it has been, what should be done for Canada to be a real global leader in the production of clean, green hydrogen?
Thank you very much for the question. So expertise is, I'm going to start with expertise. That's a very important topic. Canada has a very highly qualified workforce. Canada has been a leader, and I can elaborate on that, since the early 20th century in hydrogen. So there's quite a lot of knowledge in Canada at the very high level university, highly qualified individuals. At the trade level, and there's a lot of training still that remains to be done. Fortunately, a lot of the skills from workers in the oil and gas industry are very much transferable. So the incremental amount of training for a hydrogen technician, for tradespeople, there is that increment, but it's not that they come from a very low baseline. So that in a way is a blessing. There's a number of colleges already in Canada that are developing expertise. There's the College of the North Atlantic, Cambrian College, NAIT in Alberta, there's Red River College, BCIT. So every province has colleges that are very seriously looking at what that upskilling or reskilling or retooling, if you will, looks like in hydrogen. I have a number of members actually that have taken on themselves to develop those skills internally.
Je vais vous arrêter.
I have to stop you, Ms. Perez. I understand that we have all we need, but it's not being developed or enhanced. Something is lacking. Canada is not releasing the funds necessary to promote this sector, and that is what I understand from your testimony. Let me now turn to Mr. Kakumana. When I read your document, I was very impressed, I must say. You have a mine of information here, but I would like to, first of all, know, you say that your company has taken part in many partnerships So I would like to find out where. Let me ask all my 3 questions at the same time because I have less than 2 minutes left. Where are those projects? Is there a patent for your technologies? And the fuel that is produced as presented in your website, are these biofuels or are greenhouse gases included? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So what our technology is basically trying to do is get rid of landfills. So the base technology is pyrolysis, which is the basic technology behind it. So we're not going to be patenting pyrolysis because that's a technology which is already out there. We have unique know-how in terms of how we use that technology without segregation of waste up front. So we no longer need green bins and black bins and blue bins, especially on municipal waste. We would be able to take all the waste, mixed waste, both solid and liquid, and be able to process it through our system, our know-how technology. The projects we're working on right now is mostly with municipalities. There are a lot of municipalities we're working with in Canada right now, especially in Alberta, where we are almost ready to, we've signed MOUs. We have built our first prototype units, which is up and running here in Calgary. We are also looking at private sector, who was private waste management companies, which have actually put purchase orders on us so that we're building units for them. We're also working with quite a few municipalities in the US. Actually, there's a lot of attraction from the US. So we had from Oklahoma, a group of waste management companies who have traveled all over up here to Calgary to see our demo unit. And they're very excited because they want to be able to share with us. They want to give us all their waste.
Je vous arrête, monsieur.
I have to stop you. I'm sorry, because I see time going by, and I would like you to answer my last question. The fuel produced in this process, does it produce greenhouse gases when it is burned? Please, very briefly so.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will, because it's basically what we're taking is we're taking the plastic and tires and any of those carbon-rich waste. Okay. It will come back into some type of a diesel, and yes, if you burn that, there will be greenhouses.
Merci.
Yes.
Merci beaucoup. Madame Collins.
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins.
And I want to thank all the witnesses for your testimony, for being here. My questions are for Ian Robertson. And can you, 2 questions really related. Can you comment a bit more about how shore power is progressing in Victoria and in other ports? And then also, you mentioned the commitment of the cruise industry to have the vast majority of their fleet shore power ready, 85% by 2028, 95% by 2040. Will we be missing out on an opportunity to develop a cleaner cruise industry if the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority and others aren't able to get the funding they need for shore power?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in Victoria, we do not have shore power, and that's our main goal and our main priority right now. And we're very close. We have funding commitments from the provincial government. We have funding commitments from the cruise lines themselves. We're just waiting on the federal government, and I'm hopeful that will happen. So I think, as I mentioned, there's very few ports across Canada that are shore power capable. On the west coast, there's Vancouver, and then there's us, and then we do not have shore power. So I think there's an opportunity for us to catch up. It would be sad to see the cruise lines make their advancements and be shore power capable, and that we as an industry, and specifically us as a port, are not able to provide the technology, I should say, or the hookup or the capability for them to plug in and power down while they're in ports.
Thank you so much. Now, Victoria's port is a bit unique. It's located right beside the James Bay neighborhood. You know, pollution from the cruise ships is a big concern for residents. Can you speak about the additional challenges that presents and how shore power could make a difference?
Yes, thank you. You're absolutely right, MP Collins. Our port is adjacent to a neighborhood community, so that also creates, I think, another area, a level of responsibility, an obligation that we have to do everything that we can within our power to reduce the environmental impact upon the community. And that's where this report has identified that the installation of shore power would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 96% off the facility. So it's important that we move ahead with this project. And as I said, we're very close, and we just do need the support from the federal government to be able to make this a reality.
And another thing that makes our harbor unique is that the Greater Victoria Harbor Authority, it's not part of the Canadian Port Authority. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that impacts this issue?
Yeah, again, thank you. You're absolutely right. We're a not-for-profit organization. What that means is that we do not have any ongoing access to operating funds from either the federal government or the provincial government, unlike other Canadian port authorities, Vancouver, Nanaimo, Port Alberni, Prince Rupert here on the West Coast. So it's important that we do everything we can to seek the support from the federal government. I do note, and I think this is important for the work that you're doing, is that about 8 to 10 years ago, the federal government did have a shore power program that was available to all ports. And I would urge this committee to reconsider making that available to not just Victoria, but all ports across the country that would like to utilize the very clean technology that's available in order to put the technology in to allow cruise and other ocean-going vessels to power down while they're in port.
Thanks for that. I feel like that's a very important recommendation. Can you talk a little bit about the history of how the Greater Victoria Harbor Authority got to the place where it is, where it's not part of the Canadian Port Authority, and also the history of Vancouver and how they got shore power?
Thank you. Yes, so the Greater Victoria Harbor Authority was created back in 2002 when the federal government of that day divested a number of smaller harbor properties, and that's how we were created. And we are established as a not-for-profit organization governed by a number of local agencies. I think the governance model is very good and very strong, and it supports local input. However, the downside is that we do not have access to federal funding, unlike other Canadian port authorities across the country. Vancouver was one of the first ports in Canada to install shore power. That was done in 2010, leading up to the Olympics. And again, that was done based on the program that the federal government had at that time, which allowed ports, provided funding for ports to be able to install that technology. And we've seen a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in Vancouver. It's our goal in Victoria to be able to mirror that same result.
Thanks so much. And another kind of unique piece of the Greater Victoria Harbor Authority is that you have a number of people on your board representing different stakeholders, including the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having the nations really part of the governance structure of your organization?
Yes, ever since we were created, we are honored to have both nations as part of our board governance model, and that allows us to work with them very closely. We were one of the first ports in Canada to assign 1% of our operating revenue goes towards supporting reconciliation programs for both the nations, the Esquimalt Nation and the Songhees Nation. We're very proud of that. What it also means is that for our other stakeholders, we're very mindful and receive their support. It's important that in order for us to continue to support the Songhees Nation, the Esquimalt Nation in their work they're doing, that this technology be employed. 72% of our revenues come from cruise. It's a very important sector for us and allows us to continue our very good work at the local area.
Unfortunately, we'll have to stop there and start the second round with Mr. McLean for 5 minutes. Pardon?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I welcome to all the witnesses. Thanks for coming today, and I'm going to focus my questions today on Ms. Vera Perez. Ms. Vera Perez, thank you so much for the briefing you gave my office and I a couple of weeks ago on the hydrogen economy and its importance to our future. There are, I have followed up with a lot of research on our meeting, and I wanted to ask you a few questions here. We all know that the world is going to demand more power going forward, more energy from all sources. And looking at hydrogen as one of those sources is obviously pretty important for us. And the leadership, of course, is often in blue hydrogen. But can you tell me, when you look at this, when you look at our path forward, can you talk about green hydrogen and the actual power consumption required to produce green hydrogen?
I think I'm not on mute anymore. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So this is a question that comes up over and over, right? right now, so we're looking at, for example, 5 gigawatts out of Newfoundland offshore wind capacity. The province of Newfoundland has just allowed the production of 5 gigawatts of offshore wind. That's going to be new, of course, and that would be in principle dedicated to hydrogen. I don't have a number right now in terms of gigawatts and tons and what that would be equivalent
so what I'm asking, Ms. Perez, I'm sorry to interrupt,
no
is the whole thing about energy is
it's
energy returned over energy invested. And if it costs you 60% of the power just to produce hydrogen that you get out of the hydrogen at the end of the day, on the stack of energy options available to society, it is the most energy consumptive at the end of the day. Would you agree?
I would agree that it is that if we're talking about efficiency of round trip efficiency of a system, it is not the highest round trip efficiency. However, when you think about the whole picture, right? Efficiency is one of the components. This is an industry that's scaling up now, so you will argue that efficiency will improve over time and is already improving over time. So that's one point. The other point is that we cannot forget about the robustness of the system that we're trying to develop going forward, and resiliency. So this is also something that hydrogen brings into the mix.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Perez. I've only got a little bit of time here, and I appreciate what you're saying there about this technology developed so it becomes more efficient going forward once you get through it. I was at the International Energy Agency meetings back in March, and a gentleman named Dr. Andrew Forrest, who's a billionaire from Australia that heads Fortescue Futures Industry. He said that hydrogen will not be viable as a fuel source for 20 to 30 years. And it's important for governments to de-risk it until that point in time. Now, in the meantime, de-risking it means a whole bunch of money, like $12 billion off the coast of Newfoundland to produce hydrogen from wind energy, consume power to turn it into either ethanol or ammonia, and then ship it, all of which is very energy intensive. And matter of fact, in some cases will result in energy lost through the process. So at what point in time do you think this will become more robust so it's not consuming 15 times as much cost as its next, say, blue hydrogen, which is actually further developed?
Good question and good point. A few items here. Andrew Forrest, at the same time, is very bullish on his capacity to bring in the order of megatons of hydrogen to the EU. I'll get you the number. I've read an article that he wrote.
Well, Mr. Forrest is bullish on this as long as somebody else is paying for it. As I have noticed, Mr. Bullish hasn't put a dime down for what the government's paying in Newfoundland. If he has, I haven't seen it. I'd love to see that.
I will have to give you that. But yeah, thank you. So what I wanted to mention is a lot of what you're saying about government helping to de-risk is, for example, contract for difference, right? That's the initiative that Germany has come up with. The idea is that the government helps de-risk that difference between what it costs to produce hydrogen today and what the end users are able to pay, right? Now, the idea, contract for difference itself, that program is quite complex. That's what I hear from members and people in Germany. But the principle, I think, is quite valid. Now, you would need to think about
sorry, we're going to have to
scale,
stop there. This is very technical and very involved. And I'm sure we could go on for many more minutes, but we'll have to go to Mr. Weiler now for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and fascinating testimony already. So thanks to the witnesses for being here today. I do want to actually remain with some questions to Ms. Vieira Perez on this general topic. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it's pushed up the price of natural gas right around the world, especially in Europe. And we're actually seeing in Europe now the price of green hydrogen is actually cheaper than natural gas. And so looking ahead, the thinking was that green hydrogen wouldn't be cost competitive with blue hydrogen for about 10 years. But with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I was wondering if you could give us a sense of how that gap might have narrowed with the energy market where it is right now.
So quite sadly, the gap keeps narrowing, and energy bills for those of us who have family in Europe are quite high right now. It's not only it's the war in Russia, it's climate events, and in general, the possibility of other events that we in Canada cannot control, right, globally speaking. So it's about diversifying the energy supply and the energy mix, right? I just wanted to make very quickly that point. And I'm not able to give you a number in terms of, how many cents a kilogram green hydrogen is becoming cheaper. But there are many elements that are contributing to hydrogen getting cheaper. Gigafactory being announced in the US, operating next year by Plug Power. $1.2 billion invested by France in a gigafactory in their territory. So there are many factors that are influencing. Now the fact that there's going to be a hydrogen pipeline just announced today in the Financial Times between Brussels and between Spain and France, and then there's the gas pipe that is not going to be built. I don't have a number in terms of how many cents this is making green hydrogen more viable, but the gap's narrowing. When you think about it, the biggest factors that influence the price of green hydrogen are the cost of electricity and the cost of the electrolyzers. The capital cost of the electrolyzers, all these things will go lower and lower as the economies of scale increase. And then the price of electricity is also a matter of thinking about which are the jurisdictions where you want to start producing the highest volumes first, where you have the best deal, if you will, on the price of electricity, right? So those are the big two indicators. And then when price of natural gas goes up, obviously the economics gets better.
Thanks for that. I was hoping you'd maybe speak a little bit more to, you talked about some of the competitiveness concerns with China, with the US, and with Germany. I was hoping you could maybe speak to some of the competitive advantages that Canada has right now and how we can seek to leverage those in the hydrogen economy.
Yeah, and Canada has many, right? No intention to be a party pooper in the statement. We have actually the longest history of I don't know if this panel knows, but that Canada is the country that has led the development of the electrolyzer industry from the beginning of the 20th century with a company called Stuart Energy. Many iterations forward of that company that led to hydrogenics, that led to next hydrogen in some ways, and to hydrogen optimized today. So that know-how is Canadian. A lot of the electrolyzer technology is used elsewhere, including, for example, some projects in India that we've looked at. They're born in Canada. So that's one. Another one, obviously, is the fuel cell industry, which based on the West Coast. So Ontario has been the cradle of the electrolyzer industry, the West Coast of Canada, the cluster where the fuel cell industry has been born. So the know-how is here, the patents are here, the knowledge is here. And that's a reason to be proud. And that's one of the reasons I always feel that we should continue to lead. This is the 1987 Canadian Hydrogen Strategy. It has a different title. So when I say that we have been leaders in the space, I mean it. And we were leaders when nobody was paying too much attention to hydrogen. So now that everybody's paying a lot of attention to hydrogen, we really need to claim our spot.
And maybe just quickly, how can we better support those clean tech companies working in hydrogen, both in Canada as export opportunities as well?
Sorry, we're out of time, but maybe you can...
I'll follow up.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, Madame Posey.
Ms. Posey. The International Energy Agency feels that the states have an important role to play. A question for you, Mr. Kakumana, and another for Ms. Perez. For you, sir, in your sector, are states showing interest in your area of technology, governments?
Yes, we are looking at some municipalities in the US who have expressed interest to use our solution to process their waste, which they're basically putting into the landfills right now.
Okay, désolé, c'est que j'écoute.
I'm sorry, I was still listening to the interpretation, so thank you. So municipalities are following you. I didn't hear you mention the federal government, so I'm not sure if they're involved. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, we have not been approached by any of the federal government yet. I mean, that is something that we are trying to address, that these kind of opportunities and companies like FogDog are available with some technologies. And we need some support where we can actually, I totally understand the long-term strategy of hydrogen and long-term strategy of wind and solar. But what we are trying to say is there is current low-hanging fruit that we could get rid of these landfills, which are contributing up to 3 degrees to our climate temperature. And we can get rid of that right now. And all the municipalities, when you really talk to
je vous arrête.
I'm stopping you there because during your introductory remarks, what you said was very interesting. Ms. Vera Perez, you talked about our knowledge patents in Canada. But when I read the document you gave us, it seems that what is lacking are the funds. Could you please tell us more? How come the federal government doesn't seem to be interested in green hydrogen as something that could help us get to net zero?
Thank you for that question. I do believe that the federal government is very interested. And I do believe that a lot of what we're lacking or what we're needing is around funding that is dedicated to help the scale up of a new industry in the scale that we're talking about. So here we're developing a new industry at a very large scale, right? So there needs to be that push.
Okay.
So that industry gets on.
Thank you.
Then the other aspects would be regulatory.
Thank you. Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to continue with my questions to Mr. Ian Robertson. Is there any concern about grid capacity? We've had a lot of conversations about modernizing our grid and grid connections with the additional energy required for shore power.
No, I'm very pleased to say that we've had very good conversations with BC Hydro, and they've confirmed that there is sufficient power on the island and specifically within the Victoria area to accommodate the request and the technology that we would like to employ.
Wonderful. And you talked about the fact that the provincial government has made commitments, the cruise industry has made commitments. I hear from constituents all the time about how our community really wants to see shore power here. What are the level of commitment that you've heard from those other from the cruise industry, et cetera, and what would you be looking for from the federal government?
Yes, thank you. So the funding strategy that we are using is similar, very similar to what was used in Vancouver, where the federal government and the provincial government equally shared 50% of the funding, and the cruise line industry contributed 50%. So to specifically your question, we've received commitment from the provincial government to fund 25%, and we've received a funding strategy, a funding model for the cruise lines to contribute 50%. So we're just waiting on that last 25% from the federal government, and we're ready to go. And so I hope that by providing this information to the committee, and specifically talking around the funding mechanism that was provided about 12 years ago for Vancouver to come online, would be made available to Victoria. And again, given our not-for-profit status, that is incredibly important. If we don't get the funding from the federal government, we're not able to move this project forward. It's as simple as that.
Thanks so much. And maybe just very quickly, I know the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority has been doing other work outside of shore power to become more environmentally friendly. Can you talk a little bit more about protecting our oceans, emissions reductions, et cetera?
15 seconds is all we have left, Mr. Robertson. So.
I will say that our transportation provider has been making significant reductions. In fact, we have probably one of the cleanest motor coach fleets in Canada in moving our guests from the terminal to downtown Victoria.
Thank you. Mr. Couric.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining. And to just note before I jump into my questions, I'm very pleased to have the support of of the committee and the opportunity to be the vice chair, and certainly coming from a large rural constituency that is at the center of energy production in our country. Very, very pleased to be a part of this, and to thank the chair and of course the analysts and the clerk and everybody involved for their work. So a statement that was made by Ms. Vera Perez, but also, and I apologize if I say your name wrong, Mr. Kakamanu. Is that close? Okay. The statement about their short, medium, and long-term solutions. I think that's absolutely key, and you referenced low-hanging fruit, and certainly, in my constituency, for example, some of the major urbans in the province of Alberta ship their garbage hours out of the major urban centre to landfills in rural Alberta. Can you elaborate a little bit on how both the immediate emissions reduction possibilities associated with your technology, but also some of the supply chain? It's hard to believe that there's a supply chain for garbage in Canada, but some of the supply chain wins that could be accomplished through technological solutions like the company that you're representing.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's absolutely right. I think when I said low-hanging fruit, I think we have long-term strategies and medium-term strategies, but what we are focusing on is the existing, what we right now have with these landfills, which are generating these methane gases. So what we're saying is, look, municipalities at the grassroots have issues. They are not able to export this garbage out, what they were able to do 5 or 6 years ago to Asia and other countries, and they're now all stuck. And there's several municipalities where we talk on a daily basis, they're stuck with this, even plastics, that they're afraid to put it into the landfills. They're actually storing them in containers next to the landfills because they don't know what to do with it, because they're all waiting for a solution. So when we talk to them, and also some of these municipalities are actually shipping, trucking, paying $120 to $200 a ton to ship the waste 100 kilometers away to a landfill. So what we are proposing is, look, we could actually use that waste and actually generate revenue for the municipalities, because that is cost savings for them, and actually use graphite is one of the byproducts which we'll be able to get, the more carbon content the waste is, and which is basically used in the EV batteries. So what we're trying to say is, look, we can clean up your landfills. We could actually cost save your line item of revenue costs where you're shipping and transporting that waste, and at the same time get your lands free of these landfills. So the issue we're having is CapEx. Nobody wants to write the CapEx bill. They're willing to give us a 15-year contract, 20-year contract, but they're saying, hey, you need to build this. And this is where we're approaching provincial, even federal governments and some of the agencies and saying, we are the kind of companies we would need some support where we can actually prove these technologies working. And as we get to the next level, maybe the hydrogen, other broader strategies will play into that. By that time, we would be able to help even reduce our math right now shows that we can reduce 3 degrees of the climate temperature in Canada if we get rid of these landfills, which is basically 32 million tons of waste that is being put into landfills.
Thank you very much. And I just would like to emphasize the fact that we've heard this week, and having just joined the committee recently, there's no silver bullet, but important to acknowledge the need for a diversity of solutions. And I think highlighting technology is absolutely key. Do you have about 30 seconds? Is that 40? Okay, so Ms. Vera Perez, regarding hydrogen, Alberta recently announced a hydrogen strategy. Is that a step in the right direction to continue the conversation about hydrogen development here in Canada?
Absolutely. Alberta is leading the charge on hydrogen as well. There's also the Hydrogen Centers of Excellence in Alberta. There's $50 million put into hydrogen and into developing pathways to clean hydrogen through CCUS as well.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll have to go to Mr. Longfield now for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll be flipping my time over to Ms. Taylor-Roy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Longfield, and thank you, Chair. I'm very curious about the manufacturing of these gigafactories and the electrolyzers, and so I'd like to direct my questions to Ms. Vera Perez. You mentioned that electrolysis or electrolyzers are kind of a Canadian invention, or that we've been doing this for a long time. Do you think there is the potential to build a gigafactory or to manufacture electrolyzers in Canada?
Yes, there is, and we have been advocating for that. There is one company, one electrolyzer producer in Canada that has also opened offices in Houston, and they are advocating very heavily to be allowed to build an electrolyzer gigafactory in Canada, and it could be the first. They have strong partnerships with strong European companies as well that could very well balance the needs of this other company. Also, Hydrogenics Cummings now produces electrolyzers in Mississauga in Canada. This is happening today. They produce these small electrolyzers up to 20 megawatt in Canada. Now they're going to be producing the large size electrolyzers up to 100 megawatt in the US. But
And
there is manufacturing in Canada.
Yeah, sorry, why is there not greater manufacturing in Canada, and why do you think Cummins has gone to the U.S. to produce these larger electrolyzers?
Well, partly is the possibilities that the Inflation Reduction Act brings. Part of it is that there's a lot more of an appetite for risk-taking, if you will. In this case, in the U.S., right, we're talking about this example. Just this week, Plug Power, which is one of our members, unveiled a gigafactory project in the U.S. as well. This is all because it is acknowledged that the supply chains are tight, and delivery of equipment is crucial, right, in the right timelines. So those companies who can are taking it on themselves to develop their own gigafactories. We spoke about Andrew Forrest. They're also doing that, of course.
Right. When you mentioned supply chains are tight, are you saying that it's more difficult in Canada than the U.S. due to supply chains, or what's the relevance of the supply chains?
No,
okay.
Not necessarily. Supply chains are tight in general. Since the pandemic, world supply chains have, I think that we've realized how fragile we are in a way. But I think it's not the lack of support, but it's the support that is a little bit disjointed and in many different pockets, and it's very difficult to navigate, right? So there's the advanced manufacturing supercluster, for example, engine, and then there's CIB, and then there's CIF and CFF. So we need to think about, is there a possibility of a one-window shop, or is there a possibility of looking at this important, right? Again, we have this overarching goal in Canada. We have a strategy. What are the possibilities of helping?
Sorry, I just had two more quick questions, and I'm conscious of the time. So, I was just wondering the goal, the hydrogen shot, clean hydrogen cost target. Do you think that's realistic, and do you think it could be actually achieved? The dollar per kilogram of hydrogen by 2030.
It can be achieved, and I'm not saying that this on an optimistic, unrealistic way. It can be achieved, but we need to work to get there. Again, the biggest if we're depending on the color, and we celebrate all colors of hydrogen, I must say this, but if we're thinking about electrolyzer produced hydrogen, again, price of electricity, price of the equipment. Price of the equipment goes down with economies of scale.
Okay, thank you. So I am most interested in green hydrogen, as I feel that's really our future. And the future of the world, the direction the energy market is going in. So if we're going to be investing in this, I think this is the area we should be investing in. So when you say there's a greater risk appetite in the United States, you mean from investors? Is that what you're talking about?
From investors, from the government, the DOE, for example, from venture capital. This is an industry that, in VC terms, is a hardware industry, meaning there's capex and there's things that we build, and it's not an app, right? It's not a software. So we need to understand that the exit times for these types of investments are longer, and this is why patient capital, and not only funding, right? Funding is important, but policies are also have a dollar
Merci. Merci.
Thank you.
Ceci termine le.
This is the end of testimonies on our study on green technologies. I would like to heartily thank the witnesses who appeared before us today. It was a very interesting and enriching discussion. Everything you've said will help us in our reflections. So this is the end of the first part of today's session. We'll continue in a few minutes. We'll take a break and continue with Brian Massey.
Looking at our first private members bill ever as a committee in this 44th Parliament. Welcome, Mr. Massey. You have up to 10 minutes, but if you can do 7, that would help us finish on time. But as I say, you have up to 10 minutes if you so choose.
Sure. No, and you know what, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for having me. And maybe you can just signal to me when you get 1 minute, and I'll scoot on through and do that. I want to make sure that respect the committee's time and thing here. So I'm really pleased to be here and present Bill C-248. Members of this committee know that it was in the House of Commons and it passed first reading. I want to thank the authors of the bill, being the Librarian of Parliament, who helped work on it. It's a privilege to bring this legislation forward and to be the one doing so. This has been a big environmental movement in the Windsor area and Southern Ontario for a long time. We are endeavoring to protect lands for almost half a century, in particular this area, because of our industrialization and the fact that we also have a lot of agriculture, and so our natural areas have been taxed. And I want to say thanks to a number of groups, to essential partners, recognize Chief Duckworth of Caldwell First Nations, the Mayor and City Council of Windsor, Wildlands League, Unifor Environment Committee, Wildlife Preservation Canada, Citizens Environmental Alliance, Essex County Field Naturalists, Green Uma, Friends of Ojibwe, and Save Ojibwe organizations, and all the local residents over the years that have sent in thousands of petitions, letters, and so forth. It's been really special. The proposed Ojibwe National Urban Park here in Windsor, Ontario, is part of a traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations that includes the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. and with long-respecting relationships of First Nations. In fact, it's the oldest European settlement, and we're right next to it. It's west of Montreal, with over 300 years of Francophonie settlement as well, too. It's where the War of 1812 was fought. It's where the Underground Railroad was. It is also where the rum runners were. So there's been lots of heritage and tradition going on in this corridor. And the proposed urban park that we have here is part of Tallgrass Prairie. There's only 1% left in all of Canada. And this area is very special because it's been preserved almost by accident. There have been a number of different community organization groups that have been trying to protect this land over a number of different years, and it's come about really because the City of Windsor has been very good stewards, as well the Province of Ontario, and there has been some federal lands that I'm going to get into later that are now part of, really a change that could be not only good for 200 of Canada's 500 endangered species right down there, but also to ecotourism, and right next to it we're building the Gordie Howe Bridge, Canada's largest infrastructure project that goes into the United States. And so Ojibwe Shores on the waterfront there is 33 acres and is the last undeveloped spot along the Detroit River in the City of Windsor and in the area, maybe in the Great Lakes, where it actually has a complex of a number of different tall grass, prairie, a number of different species at risk, and they connect into several other properties that actually the City of Windsor owns, the Province of Ontario has, and Ojibwe Shores itself is actually owned by the Port Authority. Since the introduction of this bill, I've been trying to save this, as well as others in the community, this land from development. It is now actually on a member of understanding with Parks Canada and Environment Canada to protect it. It's crucial because at one point the Port Authority wanted to bulldoze this area down and develop it, using it basically for landfill from the Gordie Howe Herb Gray Parkway project. That's now protected, and when it actually was inventoried by the field naturalists, it ranks as some of the highest and most valuable property for the ecosystem in Ontario. There are several areas that I'm going to touch on briefly that connect into this. There's a Spring Garden Natural Area, which is the City of Windsor. I was on City Council when we actually protected that. It's got everything from the Duke Skipper, red-headed woodpecker, the gray fox, all kinds of different American chestnut trees, a whole series of ecosystems there. Because we're actually a Carolinian area and off the water, it creates this eco-diversity and a hotspot for species. There's also the Black Oak Heritage Park, which is next to Ojibwe Shores. So the Ojibwe Shores is right on the waterfront. Then Black Oak Heritage, a City of Windsor property, is right next to it. So we have the port property right next to the city property, but there's no management system there that's in together. And they actually has a savanna, a woodland species, and actually has some of the best chestnut groves that are left over in Ontario. Next to that is a Tallgrass Prairie Heritage Park, where there's actually a number of different things that are in there. The red-bellied snake, Butler's Gartner snake, eastern fox snake, and common park reptiles are there. And at 1977, they found species that they thought were actually extinct in Canada that are actually still there, and that connects it as well, too. Then we have Ojibwe Park, and Ojibwe Park is next to it and actually has an excellent nature center. So I think you're getting a theme here, is that we have these little plots of land that are owned by different people and different groups. And so this actually has a nature center, walking trails, beautiful ecosystem. It's also had some private areas given to it from the former raceway with the Tom Joy. Next to that, we have Ojibwe Provincial Nature Reserve, which is next to that. And there's more rare plants per hectare there than anywhere else in Ontario. And so that's really cool in itself, if you ask me, in terms of what we have around ourselves there. But what's really even special, and why I think this is different than the other urban parks that are being considered, is right across the river is, in the United States, is the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, which is the only one that they have over there. So across in the United States, if you saw the area, you see on the Canadian side, we have the Brino Bridge being built. Then we have a swath of green patchy territory that needs to be connected and managed. On the U.S. side, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, with Zug Island, it looks like Mordor. It's not very attractive, but there's also another community that's getting revitalization called Delray, which is exciting too, because Sandwich and Delray, Sandwich Town where I represent, is one of the poorest places in Canada with child poverty. Again, I mentioned the rich tradition that it has in the past with the War of 1812 and the Rum Runners and the Underground Railroad, all those things. But right now, it has some of the highest child poverty, has some of the biggest challenges with the environment, because it's pinned down in this border area from the Ambassador Bridge on one side, a railroad track on the other, and the Detroit River on the other. So it's an exciting renewal opportunity that we're pleased about. And then with the Detroit side, they are putting a lot of money into the Humberg Marsh and a whole bunch of ecosystems. So what this means is this property is now a conduit for keeping things together and for species to migrate and move. So about 12 years ago, local residents fought to keep Ojibwe shores from being bulldozed. There's a long story behind that. I won't get into that. Next to it, again, is the Gordie Howe Bridge that's being built. That's actually going to come online in a couple of years. It's exciting. That's been a real fight. And that's actually a good example of doing things right. When I first got here, nobody wanted to build another bridge. It was seen as excessive. It was seen as not needed. We're doing it right. It's a fantastic project that was actually started by the Paul Martin with the original, actually John Kretchen with the original Let's Get Windsor Moving Fund for $200 million. And then later on, it was actually finalized with Stephen Harper's government. It did a terrific job of making sure it was done correctly, because there was a lot of private interests against this. And now it's all unified everybody. And it's a huge thing, win for our environment and for our economy. And that's right next to it. And then so what happened in 2017 is after we stopped the destruction of the Ojibwe shores, the Port Authority did change their mind, let people on board onto the site, and there's like 10 criteria of Ojibwe shores to find out whether it's environmentally significant. One is good enough. They had 9 out of 10. And I won't list them all because we don't have time, but it got 9 out of 10 because of the way that the ecosystem is and because of our Carolinian background. So I've been on about this for a long time. We've had a town hall in 2019 where I invited not only just the residents, but we also brought in Caldwell First Nations, the Wildland Leagues, a number of different Americans, even actually American state and federal officials came. So we've had a really good positive input with that, and we've held it up with another town hall meeting just recently as well too. In fact, even when the Prime Minister was down in Windsor in 2020, he said to the union leaders at that time that he supported an urban park down there. So that was good. So in 2021, I introduced C248 as a bill because there had been discussion of some new urban parks that might come online, but what we wanted was simply what's been done for every other national park to date, is that it actually has its own legislation, just like a bridge or a border crossing. And so that's what we're doing, is we're amending the schedule in the Parks Act to add this area. And I only have 1 minute left to wrap up because I would rather have interaction with everyone. But one of the good news things that happened is since introducing the bill, that's actually triggered the memo of understanding for the Ojibwe shores to be protected from the Port Authority. So that happened since then. Parks Canada, to their credit, they were opposed to co-management with Caldwell First Nations at first, have now changed positions, and co-management, which is becoming the norm with First Nations, is important. And I'll finish with this is really kind of one of the most wonderful things we've seen happen out of this entire endeavor. Caldwell First Nations, a brief history as I wrap up, they originally were supposed to get Point Pelee after the War of 1812. They were burned out of their properties, and they were actually then shunted around for a number of different years. They finally reached a settlement, the first new modern settlement that's actually taken place, and they view this as reconciliation and been full-time partners in this. It's a wonderful story in terms of that, and Chief Mary Duckworth has been excellent with this, and you'll hopefully hear from her later. And I want to say thank you to the committee members for considering this, and I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you. So I'm going to make the first round a 5-minute round, and the second round a 4 and 2 round, so that we can finish on time. Mr. Lewis, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this afternoon with you all. I hope I'm still on there. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. You know what? It's a beautiful day here in Essex, and it'll be a great day to take a walk in the park, a walk in a park. And so, you know, to the committee, it's pretty unique. This is a very, very unique opportunity for the folks of Essex. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We are somewhat landlocked in Essex Windsor in that we are surrounded by 3 bodies of water. And, you know, I've spoke extensively with Mayor Dilkins as the mayor of Windsor, Mayor Bondi, the mayor of LaSalle, with Mr. Watson, previous member of parliament. We've done our due diligence, and everybody says this is a fantastic thing to do. So I know I only got 5 minutes. I just used up 1 minute. Mr. Massey, first and foremost, congratulations, sir. I think this is going to be great for both of our communities. You know, with regard to our farming and our industry, so it's gobbled up a lot of land, and I'm proud of that because we need our farming industry to feed Canadians. We need our industry to pay the bills, but there's not a lot of opportunities to get outdoors for mental health. Can you just expand a little bit as to what this will do for the residents of LaSalle and West Windsor, and quite frankly across the county?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, and thank you for your assistance on this bill as well, too. This has been a collaborative effort in the region, and that's an excellent point. So our area has like a high degree of manufacturing. In fact, some of this area was originally forested, and when I talked to the port originally, they called it scrub brush. It has now 200 of Canada's 500 endangered species, but it was originally forested. And Mr. Lewis correct when you look at the amount of agriculture we have, it's high industry. Same with Mr. Epp knows as well too, with the agriculture industry that we have with greenhouses, takes up a lot of space and resources. So this is one of our last few opportunities to bind these elements together. And the reason why I think it's different than the other proposals that are out there is because it's on the international border, because of the diversity of species. And then again, we've paid a lot of price. We have a lot of environmental diseases, high rates of cancer. It's all been well identified by Health Canada, and we get a lot of smog and other types of pollution from the United States. So this is our way for pushing it back, and also for young people to see that they can participate in their ecosystem development.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Through you, Mr. Chair. So this morning I spoke with CFIB as well as with the tourism industry. And so the new Gordie Howe Bridge, pretty exciting. So we're going to get a bike path or a footpath across that. And I think there's some 3 million folks from our friends in Michigan and upstate New York, in Wisconsin, from Ohio. This could be a huge tourism possibility. Do you agree, Mr. Massey?
Absolutely. In fact, actually, it was Minister Champagne that's agreed to have the bike lane and pedestrian lane for free because it's actually going to combat some of the distances we've had over the years with regards to COVID and that. And which is exciting because Slow Roll Detroit, for example, they have at up to 5,000 cyclists meet in downtown Detroit and cycle just in harmony and out in union and have fun. So they could actually cross over there. I had Rashida Tlaib, the Democratic congressional woman, a good friend of mine for 20 years we met, and then also the U.S. ambassador to Canada. We just toured the Gordie Howe Bridge together, and so this is right next to it. And so one of the reasons I also want this to be official National Urban Park in the way that we're presenting it, because we want to also manage the park properly for the ecosystem. Point Peely, which is close to us, has a management plan because it gets a lot of bird and ecotourism, but it puts stress on the park. So we want this done properly, and it's exciting to have these ecotourism opportunities, but we also want to make sure they're planned properly.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Through Mr. Chair, I realize I have 55 seconds left. I would like you to expand a little bit with regard to the corridor. So Matchett Malden Road, vital that we allow our folks to get to the new $5.1 billion battery plant, that they get them to the Stellantis. Is that something that in regard of your bill, you have 30 seconds, sir, that you'll ensure that they can get to their workplace and get home quickly?
Absolutely, and that's another reason why the bill is so important, is because other national parks do have corridors through them, but they're managed responsibly, and they're also very important for this region because when we have all these parsed apart, like I've kind of identified, and I have a map, but it's not in both official languages, we'll send it to you later, you'll see that there's some roadways there. So there's going to take some good strategy and also investment, and more importantly, it really is the proper way to actually manage those things. So it's a good point, Mr. Lewis, and that's why we have the town of LaSalle and City of Windsor and others on board unanimously for this, because they know that we want to do this.
Okay, Ms. Thompson for 5, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Massey, for coming forward, and thank you for the work that you've done on the private member's bill. Certainly a colleague, a Liberal colleague, who shares a boundary, I believe, with you in Windsor, reviewing the debate, I think he made, for me, a very valid point around process. And I absolutely believe in the need to expand our parks within Canada. I think they're fabulous. I use them as often as I can. But I do believe in process. And in terms of the complexity of of this process in terms of the points of engagement and also the number of parcels of land involved. I think methodical steps are quite important. So to that end, why is this bill necessary when Parks Canada is already working in partnership with the City of Windsor and local First Nations through a partnership committee to establish the National Urban Park in Windsor?
So there was an announced process, but there isn't much detail about that, and it's been actually not the process that's normally taken place for national parks. National parks are usually amended to the bill, and they follow the rules that are there. So we don't know about those other ones. And the City Council and the Mayor unanimously supports this bill. Caldwell First Nations Chief Mary Duckworth supports this bill, and so those reasons, come from the genesis of, when Ojibwe Shores was going to be demolished. The first thing I did is I reached out to Caldwell First Nations, brought them down to the site, and saw if they were interested in actually trying to fight to acquire the site. They decided to go to Leamington area for a different reason, for better future, for housing, and a whole series of things. And next to be back to Point Pelee, where they're close to, but it's still their traditional territory. So we have a lot of, and we have, the wildland leagues. Everybody's pointing towards legislation because it's the most accountable, most transparent, and it's most evolved in terms of going for the future. And it's different. I don't know about the other parks that are happening with regards to the other urban areas. All I know is this one. I've represented that area for a while, and so I know this fits really well.
Thank you. And again, it's just trying to break down the steps in the process. So again, to boundaries, how do you respond to critics who say that the private members bill doesn't go far enough? And around that, is there a risk that we'll miss the opportunities to move into a more ambitious vision for the park? And are you open to other boundaries being defined within the park?
Oh yeah. So first of all, I think it was Wildland League said that they don't know of a park that hasn't actually improved over the years. Maybe the only one that isn't is because the Bruce was done in a way that it still has to go through its own legislation. I don't know if you're familiar with that project, but it's actually went the opposite way, similar to what is being proposed right now. I'm concerned with the government on their proposal, and now it's going to be in the courts, and it's going to take longer. But this one is open for amendments in the future. The beauty of it, and why this is almost like shelf ready, is because you have the City of Windsor asking for its property. The mayor actually asked them, take the property. They want to actually upload the property to be proper responsibility. The province of Ontario will have a vote coming up. They've expressed interest in all this, and there's due process even as we go further for that. So there will be in the future, hopefully future generations will improve the park, and there's plenty of opportunities, and the private sector as well too, which isn't originally in the bill here, but when I was vice chair of the Conservation Authority, and I've also talked to some of the businesses around there, some of them might actually bequeath some of their properties eventually for a national park once it becomes solid. But if you don't have it as an official national urban park, nobody really wants to donate something knowing that it might be undermined later on.
Thank you. Do you have any concerns about whether there's a constitutional authority for this bill?
No.
And the speaker, explain?
It's been the speaker has vetted the bill, and that's why it's here. So I'm very confident in the process. And the speaker, Mr. Rhoda, and I have served for a long period of time together here. He's quite capable of these things, and I'm very confident. He knows his due diligence. In fact, we actually shared a floor for a while together before he became speaker.
Thank you. And I think I still have a minute. Okay, thank you. Are there privately held lands within the boundary set out under the bill? And if yes, have the owners been consulted on the bill?
No, there are not private lands, and that's the reason why we start there. It's the logical way to start to deal with the bill, and then later on, if private lands do want to be offered, that's a different story. Like there's a great property next to it, the Connett family, and we've talked to the Connett family, so has the Port Authority and others. Right now, if you can believe this, next to this beautiful treasure, we have the Gordie Howe Bridge being built, and we have asphalt concrete recycling capabilities in front of our gateway for our new border crossing. And so some of us want to see the Connett property turn to be more environmental ways, but that's another story for another day. But perhaps with this bill, they see this, they perhaps are going to see a legacy, and they're open to discussions and so forth. But again, it comes down to money.
Merci, Madame Posey.
Thank you. Ms. Posey, your turn. I'll yield my speaking time to Ms. Collins.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Massey, as a city councillor and then as a member of parliament, I know you've been very involved in trying to protect and preserve natural areas. You mentioned to Ms. Thompson that legislation is, a really important and potentially the only way to permanently protect this area. You've spoken about how the city once had to purchase a provincial area park to prevent it from being developed. Could you just expand on this for the committee and tell us a little bit about how that informed your understanding of the need to ensure legislation is passed to make Ojibwe a national park?
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins, and I appreciate it. Because when I was on City Council, we had a provincial park called Pesh Island. It's in the middle of the Detroit River. It has an ecosystem. Actually, there was the remnants are there. They used to say that the rum runners were there, and there actually are remnants there, and there's all kinds of folklore and so forth. There's actually a little bit of infrastructure on it. And so that provincial park was put up by sale by the provincial government, including a woodlot on the other part of the shore. And so we had to purchase that land, or would have been lost to Americans, or could have been lost to developers. It was up for sale. So what City Council did at that time is we bought the provincial park for $1.3 million. And the only way to pay for that in terms of getting support to do that is that we actually then had to develop the woodlot, which was used for camping and kids programs, to be a subdivision now. And so one of the things that I want to see, and what I've been told and coached to from the regards to the non-government organizations that are involved in the environmental movement, is what they view as the consistency and the solidity of a project and a plan. And so the normal process to actually create a park is to actually amend the Parks Act and to include it in there. And that's why we want this to be the regular process right now. It's ready. It's perfectly set to be the structure to be advanced in the future, and it doesn't involve any type of barrier aside from just the legislation being needed to be passed and a proper management plan.
Thanks so much. You also talked a lot about how you've been working with the Caldwell First Nation. How long have you been working with them on this project? And could you detail your involvement with the Caldwell First Nation and how you see this really as part of reconciliation for Indigenous communities?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so it was then former Member of Parliament Cheryl Hardcastle that introduced me to Caldwell First Nations when the Port Authority was looking to sell the Ojibwe shores, the shoreline area. And Caldwell First Nations had just got their settlement from basically, and I guess a little more background is Caldwell First Nations fought with the British to protect the country. And again, I mentioned briefly that, they were supposed to get Point Pelee and they didn't get it. And so they went through the courts and a whole series of things. And now it's part of a whole beautiful reconciliation process because they're just set up an agreement with Ontario Hydro with regards to being respected there. They were involved in also helping move the Stellantis plant and other types of development projects that we have. It's a different scenario when I took over as Member of Parliament in 2002 than what it is today. And so we've worked on a series of projects together, including discussing issues of the Jay Treaty, and they're making progress on that as well, too. So I just talked yesterday to Chief Mary Duckworth. She's been here on the Hill with me presenting this as a national urban park several years ago before COVID. So this has been something that, she's been with me front and center for a long period of time. And so it's been actually, as a member of that area, where you get this kind of introduced to you, where we didn't have that chapter, it's been really special. In fact, I brought one of my publications here, just so I know we're familiar with all these things, but this is educating my constituents on Caldwell First Nations. It was a direct flyer because it's a new chapter for us in our area, and it's really special because it's working out well, and they've been part of all the town halls and all the consultation, and that's why they support the bill. And sorry, just one last thing. We were able to get through them. Wyandotte First Nations on the U.S. side is actually supporting this bill as well, too.
That is great to hear. You had mentioned a bit about the potential for co-management. Can you talk about what that opportunity is and the importance of co-management?
Yeah, so co-management is part of the Truth and Reconciliation view that Chief Duckworth views. In fact, we actually had our town hall meeting over the summer about this, and actually the focus was on co-management with the public. So we had about 300 people show up at the event, and part of it's in my publication here is to get people used to that. And so it goes beyond just reacting and consulting. It's actually being participants of how to use the property, how to be engaged with the property. This property doesn't have the access for hunting and fishing. It's too small for that. It's a significant enough property for the ecosystem, but it's one that is going to be very important. So it's part of what they view it, and the exciting part for me is that, we have a lot of, terrible situations to deal with, our First Nations. This is one of the ones that's actually, a light is being shone in a very positive way. But, and the first time I met Chief Duckworth was when they were left out of consultations for the original Gordie Howe Bridge. So I brought them down to the community benefits event, and we crashed it together. So that's kind of how we got to know each other, because they were left off the invitation list and invited them to come down, and it's been a great relationship, and I know the government's making some good relationships with them as well, too. She was just recently on the Hill here as well, too. So it's been a really good news story.
Thanks so much. You mentioned in your opening remarks and a bit in responses to other committee members about the Detroit River International Wildlife Conservation Area and how it could be connected to the Ojibwe National Urban Park. I know you're also our Great Lakes critic and a longtime member of the U.S.-Canada Parliamentarians Group and the U.S. Border Critic, and you have significant involvement and relationships with our friends south of the border. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunity the Ojibwe National Parks and the Detroit River International Wildlife Conservation Area presents for the Great Lakes region and also for the relationship between our two countries?
Yeah, thank you. This is another really good one because Vance Badaway, a member of Parliament, has been really good at working on the Great Lakes. In fact, we worked together to get. I'm vice chair of the Canada-U.S. Parliamentary Association, one of the vice chairs, and Vance helped basically trailblazed. We have a special component for Great Lakes now, so we've been lobbying in Ottawa, Washington, and prior to that, it was always hit and miss. I was always pushing against issues here and there. Now it's actually a part of a function of the Canada-U.S. Parliamentary Association, which is excellent. And so, I've been working with Senator Gary Peters for years, Rashida Tlaib, like I said, I've known her for a long time, Stephanie Chan. There's a lot of activity in the U.S. In fact, they're looking at Canada, and they're not very pleased about our Great Lakes investment right now. They're putting in hundreds of millions of dollars. They're also concerned about the DGR. This is a nuclear waste depository project that's in the Huron area. So there's been concerns about that raised. And so they would like to see us be more progressive. And the interesting thing about this project is that we need to have hotspot zones and from the U.S. for the migrating species back into Canada and back into the United States. And that's what this location does for Point Pelee, for Rondo Park, and all the way up here, and then back into the United States. And lastly, just to conclude, this is also one of those things where we're uniting citizens on both sides and NGOs. So the Great Canadian Trail is now going to go over into the United States. That was announced 3 weeks ago. So the actually Canadian Trail is going to go into the U.S. over there. And the U.S. Cycling and all their different sponsors and different groups and organizations came over for that announcement, where there was a number of different people. So actually our trail system is going to go into the U.S. And maybe some people on the border aren't as familiar how, that's just the way we are. They're our cousins, and we're their cousins.
Wonderful. You just mentioned Point Pelee National Park, which, you're very familiar with. You had talked to me about the ecotourism that's grown significantly related to that park, especially with regards to birding. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
And that's where we're lucky. Both, I don't know if people are. Richard Cannings is an ornithologist. I didn't even know what the heck that was until bird guy. So we have a resident bird, and so he came down to the area and toured it with me. And he also went out to Leamington area because they had the Hawk Festival. And so there's been a real explosion with regards to this, which has been really great. And so there's a couple other properties outside of this that once we get this defined, we might have some better consensus in terms of increasing the spots. I know as former conservation chair, vice chair, I should say, people got on board when they see something solid and they know it's going to last. And so the ecotourism's huge. I'd love for it to be part of a repertoire of places people could visit and stop and, not just Point Pelee. And it's getting really active and busy. So, either open up more spots for business or we might have restrictions in the future. And this is a great spot for business.
Wonderful. And I think I'm getting close to the end of my time. But I'd really like to know a bit about how the Ojibwe National Urban Park would help with adapting or mitigating climate change in the Windsor area.
In 10 seconds or less.
Flooding. The easiest one for everybody. If you look at our area, flooding. It's a great sponge, and we need it, especially for the town of LaSalle and other places. It's an important sponge. And the businesses. The businesses are the same thing because they're flooded.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll
And
go
I'll
to,
ask a bit more in my next question.
Okay, we'll go to the second round, a 4-minute round. Mr. Epp for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity. Serendipity has allowed me to sub in today, and that makes 3/4 of the Windsor-Essex members of Parliament having the opportunity to speak to this. And one of the disadvantages of going the second round is many of the topics that one wants to cover are covered before. So I'm going to have you retrace just a bit of ground because I have some similar lived experience as you do. Living in Windsor-Essex County, three sides of us are with our American friends. And so can you talk a little bit more about the opportunities? I'm heavily influenced. I'm a diehard with our national sport. I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, have to be. But I'm also a Detroit Lions and a Detroit Tigers fan. This park, yes, sorry, Blue Jays. This park, again, establishes another cross-border opportunity. I've attended the Freedom Fireworks, the Gordie Howe Bridge. There's all sorts of other international cooperation. Can you expound a little bit more? I know we've talked a little bit about the walking and the bike paths. What else does this do culturally? Because we are so intertwined. I've got Point Pelee Park in my riding, and so I have a lot of Detroit cottagers on the way to Point Pelee Park. What does this expand?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Epp. And first of all, I'm a Blue Jay fan, and after that last game, we actually still have to apologize. Yeah, it didn't work out so well. But no, and thank you for your work. Like we've seen the highly industrialized area, also agriculture, had to work back. I mean, we've been doing those things, but our connections to the United States, as you mentioned, are so imperative, and it's been hard over the last number of years. Like we have family members. Like I'm not sure people are aware of the connections. You almost have to experience. So the area that's next to this, like in my riding, goes through a lot. Your riding is there's 40,000 cars per day and 10,000 trucks per day go through right next to Sandwichtown, and on half of that traffic, some of it's family, friends, businesses, and colleagues. And we've really suffered with regards to the Western Hemisphere travel initiatives, which is when the U.S. first introduced passports. A lot of U.S. citizens didn't want to get passports. A lot of U.S. citizens, haven't come because of, other issues. And this is a way of bringing some of that back. And it's also economics. We know that the tool and die and the trade industry, when they go back and forth, we actually get contracts and we get development, we get all kinds of synergies. And so if we miss out on those, it would be awful. And we even get tours before COVID for people coming back for the Underground Railroad, finding where their relatives ended up. Because many of them fled the United States to come to Canada, and there was actually a number of tourism initiatives just to deal with that.
Thank you. In a previous life, I actually worked with the Food Grains Bank, and we established a growing project which we have across Canada in one of our other urban parks, in Rouge River Park in Toronto. Rouge River Park, I'm familiar, also has thoroughways through it. So we're farming inside that park. We're having transportation inside that park. Can you talk about some of the unique aspects of having an urban park here in Ojibwe?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I've toured the Rouge, and the Rouge actually came down from our original meeting. So I've been out there a number of times, and you're absolutely right. It shows you that you can live and actually develop your ecosystems within an urban area. And there is, when issues related to industry and ecosystems, there can be solutions. And that's what I really am excited about the Rouge. And what they've been doing is that they have, as you mentioned, they have roadways, they have multifaceted types of activity taking place. And that's what we need. But we need a good business plan, and we need an accountable business plan, and that's why I like this legislation, is because it also requires you to come back a series of points of times with public consultation as the plan evolves and develops and goes forward, including submitting actually accountability to Parliament. That's another thing that's different, is that we have to do that. So those are the reasons why I think it's important.
Pretty much done.
Sorry, Mr. Epp.
Mr. Longfield for 4 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Massey. It's great to see you at the table. We served on industrial committee together back in the 42nd Parliament, and always enjoy working with you. I wanted to come back to Parks Canada, and as you've mentioned just now about Rouge, and that was a park that was turned over to Parks Canada in 2017. A new process for establishing urban national parks. And the private members bill we have in front of us seems to be on a parallel track to the consultation process that Parks Canada has been following. As you know, taking 20 opportunities and narrowing them down and narrowing down. Saskatoon is in the running. We've got Windsor in the running, but landing on Windsor as an opportunity through the consultation process with Parks Canada. Could you comment on that process? You said earlier, you kind of said, well, it's not really clear what that process is, but we'll ask Parks Canada, I'm sure, in a future part of the study, but could you maybe comment on the existing consultation process?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Longfield. And yeah, it's always been a pleasure to serve. And I think it's a good and a fair question. The thing is that I feel about this, and we actually started this process before the process that the Parks Canada is doing did their thing. And that came out just before previous to an election where it was announced. And then later on, they've been having meetings with different groups and organizations, which is good. There's actually been some recent movement since we've tabled the legislation, and I got drawn, at the top of the legislation tree, so to speak. And I could have chose something else that would have been maybe easier to get done.
To be fair, that process is ongoing. To be fair, they didn't pick it up because of your private members.
Okay, so some of it started, but we're not. Anyway, we're not privy of all those meetings and discussions. We get them from third parties after they happen. So what the difference is that I'm looking for is the actual full process for the future as well too. And so that's why the legislation was put forth, is that it's going to include the accountability through the Parks Act. And that's kind of really where we see it. And that's what we asked the drafters of the legislation what would be the best way to actually enshrine this as a park and to have it consistent. Because right now, every park has to have its own legislation. That's the way it works.
Great, thank you. I feel like I'm in your role and you're in Navdeep Bain's role in Indu, as I recall. Just trying to get as many questions in as I can. You mentioned the Caldwell First Nation, and I'm also aware that the Walpole Island First Nation is also within the region. Have you done any consultation work with Walpole?
Yeah, we've left most of the consultation with Caldwell for that. I actually have a Walpole Island pin on me right now because I work with them in the J Treaty. They're in my office and that. So they're aware of the work that's going on. Caldwell's been with them. And part of Truth and Reconciliation is also to make sure that they have their strategy, and they are both engaged with Parks Canada as well, too. It's a good question.
Yeah, and I think that's really when we're talking about reconciliation and working with Parks Canada and having them go through that process as part of the Government of Canada and under the Parks Act, as you said, I think is an important thing to respect, and that members of Parliament don't interrupt that part of the consultation.
Yeah, that's not happening here. But the reality for me as a local member is that Caldwell First Nations represents the land there, and that's who we went to start our consultation, and we've left it to them. They're working with their different organizations, and we actually had a big meeting in Windsor over the J Treaty recently. That's over the boundary stuff, and so that was there, and they were also up on the Hill for the J Treaty discussions as well too, which I've heard some positive things taking place.
Good. Thanks. And I also appreciate that this isn't a partisan thing. We've spoken with Eric Kuzmirchuk, who's also quite excited about the park being established following whatever the process is that Parliament decides and works on.
Thank you. Madame Posey, est-ce que vous...
Ms. Posey? No, once again, I'll yield my time to my colleague. Ms. Collins, you have 4 minutes once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to Madame Posey for the time. I just wanted to go back to the question about adaptation and mitigation, and specifically around floods. Could you expand a little bit about how the Ojibwe National Urban Park would help this area?
Yeah, so right now you actually have the border crossing that is there. You already have it as a lower area. So even when they're building the Gordie Howe Bridge, it's taking longer on the Canadian side, and Mr. Epp will know this too, is that we've actually had to fill in the property and let it settle because it's already at a low level at the river. And that's another complication that we face, and another reason why, like the Rouge, it got its own legislation. The Rouge has its own legislation. Every other national park has its own legislation. That's part of the reason that we want it, because there's other complexities there that are going to involve, the international border, boundary issues, and then with that, basically that sponge area, we want to protect that. And the businesses there also want that. They don't want that developed as well too, because if it's developed, then it's going to create more problems. And we have major agriculture down there and fueling and so forth, a whole series of things. So that's kind of it's a gem right in amongst a lot of tough stuff that's going on there.
Thanks so much. Now, you had also mentioned, in addition to the work you've been doing with the Caldwell First Nation, also across the border, the Wendat First Nation. Can you talk a little bit more about that developing relationship?
Yeah, that's an exciting one too. That's the Wyandotte. And so when you look at our 300 plus years of Francophonie, and then also before that, it was basically Huron Church Road was a highway for going into the, and it's the oldest settlement west of Montreal. And so we have a lot of traditions with the Huron as well too. And so these are important things. And that was the thing with Caldwell First Nations and others, is that they went back and forth over the border. That's why the Jay Treaty is thing. And it's part of what Mr. Epp was referring to earlier with regards to our relations going back and forth. These are part of who we are as a people. And that's kind of really exciting. So there's been that extra contact that's been taking place as more and more people are realizing what we have here, and that there's movement on it. It's just growing. It's just growing and getting better. And that's kind of exciting because we've had those things before. They're rather unique. And with COVID, we were locked out of each other's lives. And now it's opening up in another way. It's kind of amazing.
You've already talked a bit about the Gordie Howe Bridge, and that it's the largest federally funded infrastructure project in the country, and connecting Windsor, Detroit, the business border crossing, or the busiest border crossing. How can you expand a little bit about how Ojibwe National Park would be connected with this new bridge?
Yeah. So this is actually, I was there the other day, and it's amazing because there's actually going to be this section where you can take your bike and your e-bike or whatever it might be. Who knows what they're going to be anymore, or walk across. And there's a section go separately. They're there, and there's a tourism section that's going to be caught right into Sandwich Town. And this is huge for the people down there. I mentioned they were pinned by the water. They're pinned by the Ambassador Bridge. If you're not familiar with the Ambassador Bridge, this is a billionaire American who's boarded up homes on the Canadian side, and he's known for, and the family, it's Matthew, his son now. We've had to bring in a special law to bring it under control. It's been in several stories of problems over the years, and they had no community benefits. The Gordie Howe Bridge got community benefits the first time, and those community benefits to go to Sandwich Town to help it deal with the poverty and help deal with the other issues. And so part of that is a tourism that connects in there. So the bike lanes coming, a brand new roads going into Sandwich Town, and this urban park goes right next to it. And what's kind of cool is also the urban park will connect into the Herb Gray Parkway, which also has extensive trail systems going all the way out to the 401. So this is another way to get into a whole other section that I didn't talk about that is also already developed in there, and it's actually won awards. So we've done it right. We want to finish it right.
Good. Okay, Mr. Kurek.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Kurek for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And, I think this is one of those unique opportunities in a minority parliament. And our Westminster system gives these I think, tremendous opportunities for there to be discussions. And as I was looking into this bill before the vote that took place, was surprised that I think it was all but two members of the government, and with full opposition support, it passed and was sent to this committee. And certainly that's an interesting dynamic that exists. And being in a province, we have an international park, Waterton Lakes, a tremendous example. And that's where I'd like to take my question. I was surprised that most members of the government voted against it. But if you could highlight some of the opportunities that exist with economic development, reconciliation, and tourism that really can come out as a result of members of Parliament doing what we do in this place, and that's being able to forward the issues that are important to Canadians and the unique dynamics of this being a minority Parliament where we're at committee discussing this important bill.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, no, I was a little bit surprised, too, that I didn't get a little more government support. Some of the stuff now is almost like grabbing at clouds as what's wrong with the bill. So I'm open to amendments. I'm open to changing it. I'd like to have everybody, support this bill. And I'm appreciative and very grateful for the openness. And I've tried to be transparent. And then when I had, and to be fair, both of, the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives and the Green Party had some concerns and things. I had to work on getting those resolved. And they're smaller things, but I was very happy to get that input. And I'm looking for that input on the government side because I would like more than two Liberals to vote for it. And it is a unique thing. I mean, I've been through, my first Parliament here was 2002 during a majority, and I've been through Liberal majorities, Liberal minorities, Conservative majorities, Conservative minorities, and whatever you want to have here. You have life short, time short. That's why last time I worked with Mr. Waugh on a bill, was really proud to do that because it actually helped me to grow as a person, and that's what I want to do here. I don't want to stop growing as a person at the table here and trying to find solutions solutions as to getting that. If we don't do those opportunities, they get, and there's what I've learned about this place, it can be a logic-free zone. And it can be that way, and it takes everybody, including myself, to keep it that way. And sometimes, why we're here is that we have to make some political decisions. And I know it could be convenient just to basically to not see this unique as way I do it, but that's my job. And it's never been easy to get the border crossing done. Not been easy to do some of the other work I've done. But that's my job as a representative for that area, is to prove the case. And we did this with the border. When we were told it was not necessary, it was not needed, we fought until we got it done and right. I believe the same things for this case. It's unique. It's on the border. It fits a lot of different things. I don't understand why we can't get it done.
And I think I just have a few seconds. I'd note, interestingly, I didn't expect my first meeting as vice chair of this committee to see Stephen Harper being given credit in both panels that exist. So with that, I'd cede my time to move forward. Thanks, Chair.
And Lawrence Cannon.
So you cede your time to Mr. Duguid, I guess? Whoever.
I think there's only probably 20 seconds left.
Yeah, okay, so we'll finish with Mr. Duguid for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Massey for appearing before us today. And I think you've heard around the table, Mr. Massey, that there is a shared goal. I think there may be some differences in the pathway to get there, but I think all of us share the view that this is a very special place on Earth and needs to be protected. And I particularly understand your passion. I was a former city councillor for 2 terms and protected a small patch of tall grass prairie, the most endangered ecosystem in Canada. There's less than 1% of it left, and so I share your passion. It was in Bill Blakey's riding, rest his soul, and I prevented a big roadway from going right down the middle of it. I was called all sorts of names, hindrance to progress, and so maybe I understand some of the criticism that you're getting, and it's an incredible educational resource for the people of Transcona and the broader city. And my question, I think, has already been answered. You are open to amendments if they strengthen the proposal, so that was good to hear. I'm curious about your interactions with Parks Canada and with other members of Parliament. And particularly the Liberal member that shares a border with you. It does seem that we share a common interest, and I'm just wondering about your interactions, particularly with Parks Canada, to get to that good place that we all want.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have had discussions with Parks Canada. They're having discussions with other groups and organizations, but we don't really know what the process is. And so they have been, like we asked about Caldwell First Nations being co-managers. At first they said no, now they're saying yes, and they're actually funding that. So it's excellent. And Parks Canada, before my bill, when I was starting working on saving the property, we went to them obviously for advice when dealing with Point Pelee to understand the ecosystems and the diversity of it and why it's necessary. It's only convinced me more what the work they're doing in Point Pelee is why we need this as a national urban park with the full package, and it's different. And with Mr. Kazmierczak, I've always enjoyed working with him, and we've had frank discussions about this. And quite frankly, I think that, before there was a bill with regards to single event sports betting last Parliament, the government introduced their own legislation, but then they pulled it off the table, knowing that it wasn't going to go. And I think it's a similar vein here, is that every once in a while, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I know this area. I've represented this area for a long time, and I think I've tried to do the right thing with consultation from the day one, and I'm looking to enhance it. I am open to amendments because every piece of legislation needs help.
Mr. Chair, I see it's the top of the hour. It is Friday afternoon, and could I cede my time to the chair?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I just want to use that time to thank Mr. Massey for his passionate and eloquent, support of the bill and all the work he's done on it. So, for the benefit of the members, the next meeting is in camera. We're doing the drafting instructions for the clean tech study, and then we'll start looking at the fossil fuels report. So thank you, Mr. Massey, and thank you to everyone, and I wish everyone a very good weekend. Thank you.
Good weekend, everybody.